To move kind of how you want to go into the ground, and you don't need to be thinking about all the time. You can do it, or a process of instinctiveness where it just comes out of the body. Hello and what's up everyone. So movement training is something that I have done for about a decade in my training. I had a phase for many years where I focused like mostly on actually movement training, and it developed quite a lot bit over the years. And there's been like certain things that have been really very close basically to the core of our movement practice over the years, because it all sprang from basically wanting to open up the body. And it was about exploration, and it was also about self-expression. Like if you watch any of the videos that we have here of movement, like you can see probably there's a very strong expression element in them, and also like I'm not the exploration in the sense that I study the movements. I don't take them as they are immediately, like this is the strict way of moving. I kind of explore the ways of moving and seeing how I can always better open up my body. So this has led to basically the freedom of movement that we have. It has led to the variability that we use. Like we have like 10 or 20 different lizard crawl variations, or you can have so and so many catwalks and so on. So always like changing it up and understanding that there is not one correct way that you gotta move. But noticing like how many other people do movement training, there's usually some clear patterns that I notice. Of course, everyone has their own way of doing movement, but based on my experience, I believe that there is better ways and worse ways. And I look at people, they do sometimes movement in a more restrictive manner, and I've kind of pinpointed 3 different ways that people do movement training that is not really the best possible way. And all of these ways contain something good, but that good raised as the sole purpose of movement training usually destroys the idea. And we can start from the very clear first example, and that's the one where people kind of confine themselves into very strict and, let's say, like it's a strict form pattern movements. So very sort of simplistic, they choose like a very strict and stiff form, an extremely controlled form, or kind of like a form of doing the movements. So in our movement, for example, I can say that we emphasize uncontrolled, not in the sense that we don't control the body, but I don't exactly point to which kind of form should you do this monkey movement. Like what is the exact way that you gotta do it. And you look at some people, they're very robotic almost in their movements. So they're doing like a monkey movement, like this way, and then like a bear crab roll is like, it's extremely unnecessarily controlled and restricted way of doing movements like that, and doing it always in the specific way and thinking that that's the only way of doing movement. And it's not wrong per se, because if I want to train, for example, more stability, rigidness with the movement, I will also move more stiffer. That's one of the ways that I use for movement, but it's one out of dozens of ways that you can use the movement. And you can, like for example, in the beginning it can work because people usually require more strict instructions. They want to be told exactly what to do in their training. So they like that kind of information. Okay, tell me what to do exactly because I'm afraid I will hurt myself or something. And this can be okay in the start. But in the long run, that will make you more stiffer. It's going to make you stuck in those patterns. And we want to get you unstuck. That's the purpose of our movement training. Unstuck you and get you more opened up, get you more liberated in the movement. So these kind of stiff patterns, like I see sometimes people really emphasize that and they always do it in that manner, but it really, if you take it long enough, it destroys the purpose of the movement. The movement kind of repels the form. It repels the sort of unnecessary strict form that sometimes we tell people. So what we do, we teach in our movement quite systematically how you can add variety, how you can add the variability, and we don't try to unnecessarily restrict you from moving. We don't always know what's the best possible way for you to move. The idea is really to explore the movement. Do it in your way sometimes. See how your body does it. And there are ways to really approach this, like we do, for example, in our training programs. So that's one thing, that's sort of more robotic to constrictive approach to movement. So we have many ways. Like I said, we can do this stiff way, but I can also completely loosen up while I'm doing those movements. I can move my spine around. There's no rule that I need to always keep it extremely stiff and level to my spine. Same with the bear walk, that I need to do like this way. What if I like to just roll my scapula very naturally? Do you see animals in the nature move in that robotic manner? Now, I'm not saying that it's wrong, because I train that way. It's one way to develop the body, to develop stiffness, stability, and control. But you want to develop that limberness to move kind of how you want to. How you want to go into the ground. And you don't need to be thinking about all the time. That's what I sometimes also criticize about some movement that people do. They're always thinking. You can do it or approach sort of instinctiveness where it just comes out of the body. So the paralysis by thinking too much, trying to over-control movements. That's what we're really talking about. Over-controlling it, overthinking it, and staying and thinking that that's the only good and safe way to do movement. And this will keep you from opening up. This will keep you from exploring. It will keep you from expressing yourself. So, second pattern that I sometimes see how people focus on the movement training is basically skill acquisition. So movement training is only a tool for you to acquire certain, usually it's kind of like gymnastic skills, calisthenic skills. We can talk about the different levers, human flags, front lever, back lever, planches, straddle planches, straddle handstand lifts, all of this kind of flipping, tricking, acrobatics. So I think like skill training is a nice part of movement training. I personally do some skill training, some tricking here and there, and I've always done it, but it has never been the priority. It has never been the sort of primary thing that I'm trying to chase, and I think that when I've achieved these skills, then I have the movement mastery. When I can do this most flashy stunts, then I've achieved something. So in our purpose or in our approach, the basics always bring forth the best results. And mastering those basics, I sometimes put it like the brackets, because the basics is kind of, it's not always a good term or word, because people think basics is basics, like it's not so valuable. But the basics are the most valuable, and mastering those takes a lot of time, and you can make the most amount of gains to your strength, to your control, and into your foundation by focusing on the basics. And this will bring the most amount of benefits also for your, basically for your everyday life, for your health, for the health and the opening up of your body. The skills are there. They can be there. They can be something that comes as a sort of like a symptom from you mastering these movements and getting better. But they should not be necessarily the way where you're trying to get to, because then again that becomes extremely restrictive. You're going to be sacrificing most of your training to get to some extremely hard high-level skills which may not really develop even your body in a balanced manner. Skill does not equal a healthy body. It equals that you have the skill, and it can be good, as I said. But it shouldn't be the determining factor in your training. At least in our approach when we're doing movement training, we can see the value that the basics can produce and the more like sort of down-to-earth movements can cause in your body. And that has always brought forth the most bulk of gains in my training as well, and the training of the people that do our movement training. So the third way that I see emphasized sometimes in movement training is the people do movement training in a way where it's kind of in this Fantasyland. Usually it means it's only kind of very soft, highly artistic, almost like only modern dance kind of movements. You know, Nate Diaz coined the term touch but in the park, which sometimes can be like used to like name this sort of movement style. But usually, you know, it's well, me always moving extremely soft and artistic manner and doing this kind of dancing movements. Like, basically, that also is something that it has a lot of value. It can have, like, moving in a very soft manner, doing this spinal, it's usually like this weight pattern, spinal movements, opening up the different parts of the scapula, like very fluid, oily movement, or lubricated movement. It's good. That's also something that I do as well. But in this approach, people usually set it up on an extremely high level and think that this is almost the be-all and end-all of training. And when you are able to do that, you're like, it's all there is to it, or that's the highest level, or that movement training in general is the answer to everything. In our approach, movement training has always been part of the approach. We usually say like 1/3 maybe, because we have the athletic precision training, we have the warrior conditioning endurance training, and then we have the movement training. So it's part of that. It doesn't have all the elements that are there. It cannot have, and it don't have to have. What is in the movement training already in itself, without raising it to this Fantasyland, is already extremely beneficial and valuable for the human body. We don't need to make up it to be the best of everything to get the results from it. That's actually it's not so good approach. It's a little bit actually a foolish approach, a naive approach to thinking that that's where you find all the answers. So this kind of like thing where people emphasize becoming kind of this wet noodle of extremely yielding approach. And like I said, we have the balance of like hardness, rigid, more rigid. We can have that more robotic. In the other end of the spectrum, we have extremely soft movement where you're just moving a lot around and throwing your arms and utilizing these different waves of your body, different chains. That's one end. But we have all those also in between. And movement training can be utilized extremely well to develop strength actually in the body. This is also what we cover even in our program. We are utilizing movement training to build up strength. We have methods to add the variability, to add the freedom to it. We have methods to add more softness to it, to add more flow to it. We have methods to also develop strength with the movement. So we're taking this whole spectrum that we can develop the body with movement training, and we're utilizing all of those. Not raising one or the other is better, but actually understanding that all of these contain some very fundamental patterns related to the human functionality, the optimal functioning of our body. So movement training offers tools and ways for this. If you just have the methods, if you have the approach, basically what we have been developing over the years to really do so. But honestly, my body did not open up with only this kind of stiff and always like thinking like what is the correct form, trying to see from other person, how should I do it. My body opened up because I had the courage to start to utilize freedom. I had the courage to do it in my way sometimes, to try things that I haven't even seen anyone do. I felt my body, I listened to my body in many occasions. Of course, I started with more structured training, but I opened up from there. And I also did not think that movement training was everything. That was also part of the thing. I also did other type of training because I saw the value in that, and which is basically in our other training programs recorded all of that knowledge. But I utilized in a free manner. I also utilized the many different facets, the multifaceted, it's the word here. Movement training, it's multi-dimensional, it's multi-planar, but people do these multi-dimensional movements they don't do it in a multi-dimensional manner. Doing multi-dimensional movements in one-dimensional manner is how most people do it, like I said, only in these strict patterns of this is the correct manner. I managed to open up my body the best manner when I was really utilizing that sort of freedom. I was utilizing freedom, and I did not chase those extremely restrictive and narrow skills that are there. They were there, and for a part-time I was trying to go that direction, and I noticed my body getting actually stiffer. But so I went back into those basics. I just focused on those most of the time, and I used the variability in those within those movements, and I did a number of different movements. Not just, we can go to like basic, maybe 5 great exercises, but there's like over the dozens, like 50 or something, so movements that you can be doing for your body, and they don't require some sort of extreme capabilities from your body. These are achievable for most people that are out there. Utilizing those movements and taking your body into all those different positions and articulations that come as a result of training this movement, that's what really opens it up. And the second thing is I did all of those facets. The strength, I trained movement, I use it for strength, I use it for the freedom, I use it for the softness, for the pliability, for this complete relaxation. All of those are there. And I challenge you to try to do movement, try to do it stiff, then free your mind. That's where it starts. You need to free your mind and try these different other ways. Try to do it more softly. Try to do it more rapidly, more slowly. Try to express some other thing there. Try to do it in a more, let's say, express any feeling that you have in the moment. Explore it. So I challenge you to explore these movements from this point on and see the impact that it makes to your body, and not only to your body, but also to your mind when you're doing these movements. It's incredibly liberating way of doing training when you understand, or you're getting back more freedom to yourself. This is what we are trying to get to happen with our movement training. It's simply more freedom and more opening up for your body, and that's what the purpose is in our movement training.